Which of the following is incorrect with respects of diary of proceedings in investigation as per CRPC 1973? So, diary of proceedings comes under investigation. CRPC section 172 is equivalent to BNSS 192. This diary of proceedings is also called as police diary, case diary, special diary, and station house report. So, it should be volumed and paginated, and it is used as an aid but not as an evidence. It cannot be inspected by the accused or the agent of the accused. Only it can be investigated by the court of law. When the information has reached to him, when the investigation has started, when it is ended, and the statement by the witnesses during the inquiry also to be specified in the station house report or case diary. It will have all the details about the case. The inspector or the officer in charge so used to keep on updating the diary so they can refer that for the future references and to refresh their memory. So here the answer is the statement of, now the option A, the statement of witness recorded during investigation shall be inserted in the diary. Yes, the diary shall be duly paginated. Yes, the diary may be used as an evidence, and the diary can be used as police officers to refresh memories. Now, the wrong answer, the question is incorrect. So, the question asked is incorrect. Which of the following is incorrect with the respect of diary of proceeding? So, the incorrect one is the diary may be used as an evidence. So, the option is C. And the second question, which of the following cases manner of committing offense is not required to be mentioned in the charge sheet? So, section 213 and BNS is 236 discusses about charge sheets, and it discusses about when manner of committing offense must be stated. It says the circumstances when the committing offense is to be stated. It comes under contents of charge sheet also. So let's assume A has murdered B, which means the offense made out is clear. We don't want to ask when or how and all in the charge sheet itself. In just the charge sheet, sections to be needed, and we can make out the section when the activity A murdered B is known already. So no need of explanation. By the time there is no need to add in in which manner the offense is committed. Rather than A cheated B, here we need to explain how he has cheated or what offense constitute cheating to find out the section in the chat sheet. So it should be mentioned. So the answer is A is accused of theft of a certain article from certain place. So A is accused of theft of an article. We don't want a certain time and place or how he made theft and all. So we don't want that manner of committing offense here. A is wrong. A is accused of disobeying a direction of law which intend to save from punishment. Disobeying the direction of law itself against law. So that is enough. He is accused of giving false evidence at given place and time. So giving false evidence itself a crime. So we don't want to make out how he gave false evidence. And A is accused of cheating B at a given time and place. So now this is the answer. And the third question, which of the following offences may be tried summarily as per CRPC? So this comes under summary offences trial level under summary. So CRPC says up to 2 years, and BNSS has extended this as 3 years. So the summary court proceedings, uh, the crimes like trespass, insult, petty offences, speed driving, theft under 2000 rupees, insulting, those are the offenses. Public nuisance, all of those. So section 260 of CRPC discusses about this, and BNSS says it has increased the offenses up to 3 years now. The term increased up to 3 years now. Section 283 deals with this BNSS provision, and Chief Judicial Magistrate, Metropolitan Magistrate, First Class Magistrate, all three of these cadre officers can deal with these kind of offences, and no appeal for this summary proceedings. Only it can be recalled and reheard. So the answer is offences under 454 of IPC, offences under 504. These are heinous crimes and it can't be taken in the summary court. Offences punishable with life imprisonment? No. This is also a big crime. The offence is punishable with imprisonment for a term not exceeding 2 years. So this is CRPC. So answer is C. If it is BNSS, none of these are right answers. Actually, it's 3 years. And this question has taken back by the AIBE. So if we have attended the question, we might get marks. Which of the following, fourth question, which of the following section of Code of CRPC 1973 provides for references of High Court? Section 395 says when the High Court can be called for a references in a case. So CRPC 395 and BNSS 436 sections deals with this, and we have a similar provision in CPC 113 gives the provision to refer to High Court when a case involves the validity of the act, or when the case involves a substantial question of law and it has never dealt or discussed or announced by the higher courts. So by the time we can refer the cases to High Court. So section 395 option D is the right answer. A code, a person, fifth question. A person accused of following offences may not be granted bail under section 438 of CRPC. Person accused of following offences may not grant bail. Okay, so it is asking non bailable offences. So 376A, B 376, DA 376, DB, all of these are so section 376 A, B, D, A, D, B, or all 376 offenses are rape offenses like custodial rape, gang rape, minor children rape, all of these kind of rapes, different um, things related to rape. 376 is rape section. So, person accused of the offense may not be granted bail because this is a heinous crime. This is a non-bailable and cognizable offense. Which of the following act is done by any magistrate, even in good faith, without being empowered, shall vitiate the proceedings as per CRPC? So, which of the following act can be done by magistrate in good faith shall vitiate the proceedings? So, vitiation of proceedings, the tender a pardon under section 306. So, it's murder case. So, giving a pardon, attaching a property, holding an inquest, all of these. So, Section 461 Code of Criminal Procedure 1973 enumerates specific irregularities that render criminal proceedings as void. The proceedings shall be vacated if a magistrate not empowered by law conducts actions such as attaching property, selling property, issuing warrants, or trying an offender. So these acts listed in clauses A to P nullify the proceedings. If a magistrate is not empowered by law, does any of the following proceedings are void. So attaching a property, uh, issuing search warrant, demand security to keep peace and good behavior, discharges a person bound to be a good behavior and cancels peace bond, makes a maintenance order, issues orders under 133 and chapter 10, take cognizance of an offense, tries an offender, decides an appeal or revises an order under section 446. So these are some of the irregularities which can be seen in the proceedings, and the magistrate, if even if he does, even if he uh, acts in a good faith, it will nullify, it will make the process as void ab initio, which means void from initial stages. So here the answer is, so holding an inquest, attaching a property, recalling a case, tendering a pardon. So all of these, attaching a property is also a void. Recalling a case is also void. Tendering a pardon is also void. All four are right answers. So this question options are wrong, and it is taken back by the authorities, the testing authorities. So if those batch students have attended this, they might get the mark. And the next question is, which of the following material for deciding a jurisdiction of a civil court in light of CRPC? So jurisdiction of a civil court of CRPC. Um, Section 9 gives that authority the courts to try all civil suits unless it's bad. Part 1 of Section 9 of CPC. CPC. Here, a suit for recovery of voluntary offering, suit for rights of franchise, suit relating to rights of workshop. So, Section 9 speaks about the jurisdiction, where it states that the court shall have jurisdiction to try all suits of civil nature, excepting the suits which their cognizance is expressly or implicitly barred, which means all civil cases can be taken. A suit in which the right to property to an office is contested, a suit of civil nature, the suit of religious rights, when decision of questions and ceremonies, or for the purpose of the section it is immaterial whether or not any fees are attached to the office referred in explanation 1, or whether to such office is attached to the particular place. So section 9 allows civil court to take all civil cases unless or until it's expressly barred. So specific relief act has barred certain cases which is related to contract. So that is expressly barred. The answer is C. Suit of specific relief. Which of the following provision of CPC no, the eighth question, which of the following cannot be considered as suit of civil nature for section 9? Okay. Sorry, the option is wrong. Which of the following cannot be considered as a suit of civil nature? Which of the following cannot be considered as suit of civil nature as section 9? So section 9 states that all cases of civil nature can be taken unless and until it's expressly or impliedly barred, or it is related to taking of cognizance, which means all cases, unless a suit in which right to property to an office is contested in a suit of civil nature, notwithstanding that such right may depend entirely on the decision of questions as religious rites or ceremonies. If it is religious rites and ceremonies, it is not a civil suit to be taken in a civil court. So that was related to the rights of religion, right? So it will go to higher courts, not normal civil courts. Rights of worship is against public, right? So it can't be taken in a normal civil court. So the answer is D. Which of the following provision of a code of civil procedure makes doctrine of res judicata, which is applicable in a representative suit? Okay. Res judicata is under section 11. It states that no court shall try any suit or issue in the matter directly and substantially in issue has been directly and substantially in issue in a former suit between the same parties, between the parties under whom they are any of them claim litigating under same title in a court competent to try the subsequent suit. Okay, the same title, same parties, same subject matter, so those cases are barred under res judicata. So there are totally 8 sections. So the first section expresses the former suit. The second section says the competent court. The third section says alleged by one party and it denied or admitted or expressly or impliedly by, it's about the parties. The fourth explanation is about grounds of defense and attack made. Fifth is any relief claimed in the plaint which is not expressly granted in the decree. And sixth one is litigation of bona fide in respect of a public right of a public right. Purpose of the section deemed to claim under persons so litigating. And seventh one is about execution of a decree, and the eighth one is about shall operate as res judicata in a subsequent suit. An issue heard finally decided by a court, limited jurisdiction, component decision. It's explained what is res judicata. So the question is which of the following provision makes the doctrine of res judicata applicable in a representative suit? So representative suit word comes here. Option 6. Explanation 6. Where the person litigate bona fide in respect of public right or public right is claimed in a common for themselves. That word is to be noted. So it says about representative suit. So the answer is C. The ninth question answer is C. And 10th question is in which of the following situations of a court will not issue summons for a personal afference to the defendant? Okay. What are the circumstances that court will not issue summons? So, summons. Okay. So, normally the summons procedures comes under Order 5, issue and service of summons. So normally the service of summons comes under order 5, issue of summons, where section 9 of service of summons says about delivery of summons by court. So delivery of summons will be done by the court. So actually the address is given by the parties, the opponent about the details. So the fees is paid by the plaintiff. So the defendant to be called on by the court of authority. So here section 132 exempts certain women from personal appearances. Section 132. So, section 132 states about women who, according to customs and manners of the country, ought not to be compelled to appear in public, shall be exempt from the personal appearance in court. Which means that Pardeshian women, uh, mask, married women from the deeper village side. So, because of the customs, those girls are not allowed to show their face in the public. So, those ladies, the women, are not compelled for personal appearances in case they are defendant. So, the answer is here. If a defendant reside within the local limit of court jurisdiction, so that person is inside the jurisdiction, he will be called. So first one is wrong. If a defendant resides within the 40 miles from the court, which is also under the limit of the court, so he will be called. If a defendant resides 250 miles away from the court in the area, having public convenience is available. And option D is women whom section 132 of CPC 1908 does not apply. Actually, these two are conflicting options, option C and B. Let's discuss more into it. If a defendant resides 250 miles away from the court in an area having public conveniences available, and option D is women to whom section 132 of CPC does not apply. Let's dig more into this. So, Order 5, Rule 4 of CPC says a court will not typically order a person to appear in a person to court unless they reside within the local limits of a court jurisdiction less than 50 miles from the courthouse, or if there is transportation available, it's 200 miles away. If a person's live beyond these limits, they can generally comply by sending an authorized legal representative rather than appearing personally, which means advocate or some other person, like nominated person. So, in case while the court can issue summons to someone residing abroad or more than 250 miles away, it is not a direct personal appearance order. So, summons for individuals abroad are often served through electronic means or through Ministry of Home Affairs, which needs 12 weeks of services in advance. So, in civil cases, if a person resides outside the court jurisdiction, court usually sends the summon to court of that area rather than demanding the immediate travel. So there are some alternative methods that court may permit the use of video conferencing or appointment of a commissioner to record evidences. So there are some certain exceptions and consequences towards it. So criminal courts have wider powers to compel attendance than civil courts. So ignoring a properly served summon, even if far away, can lead to ex parte judgments. In extreme cases, coercive actions, which means arrest or something like that. So, here the question is, when the court can stop from sending the summons itself. So, here the answer is, first one is wrong, second one B is wrong, C is also wrong, which is 500 miles away, and D is the answer. Women to whom section 132 of CPC. And there are some people who the courts cannot compel to be in the court of law. So that is listed under 133, which is relevant to this question. Let's have a quick read about it. So section 133 gives the list of exempted people. So one is President of India, Vice President of India, Speaker of the House of People, Ministers of the Union Ministers, Judges of the Supreme Court, Governors of the States, Administrators of Union Territories, speakers of legislative assemblies, chairman of legislative councils, judges of the High Court, and person to whom Section 87B applies. So 87B gives the definition of foreign state and its rulers. So, foreign state and rulers, and every court shall take judicial notice of the fact that state has not been recognized by the central government, and person has not been recognized as central government as to be the head of the state. That is to be noted by the court of law. So, the rulers of other countries, foreign states, prime minister, vice president, chief minister, not prime, president, vice president, speakers, all union ministers, which includes prime minister, judges of Supreme Court, governors of the states and union territories, speakers, chairmen, state ministers, judges of High Court, and person whom 87B applies. So these are all the people whom the court cannot compel to be in the court for physical appearance during their tenure. And which of the following, the next question is, which of the following situation plaintiffs precluded from bringing a fresh suit as per the code of civil procedure? Which of the following the plaintiff is precluded from bringing a fresh suit as per the CPC? So the answer is suit dismissal. So, Order 9, Rule 5 says if summons returned unserved and plaintiff did not apply for new summons within the 7 days, the court dismissed suits. So, the dismissal of the suits in CPC is discussed under Order 9, various rules. So, if the summons is returned unserved and plaintiff did not apply for new summons within the 7 days, the court is dismissed and fresh suit to be done. And there is an only one exception, which if court believes the defendant is avoiding purposefully by receiving summons. So the answer is dismiss A. The suit where summons not served in the consequences of plaintiff failure to cost. So it is dismissed. No fresh suit is allowed, right? Dismiss of suit. Neither parties appeared, which is dismissed for default. That is also precluded. Dismissal of suit in which because the plaintiff did not appear, which is the that is also a dismiss of default. And in that manner, and fourth D is dismissal of a suit because plaintiff did not apply for fresh summons within given time once is unserved. So order 9 rule 5 says you can do fresh suit. So D is wrong answer. Dismissal of suit, neither party appeared and dismissal of suit because plaintiff did not appear. So those two are conflicting options. The nearest one is dismissal of suit because plaintiff did not appear. So B and C are the nearest options, and C is the final answer as per the Bar Act. So in Bar Acts, maximum we can take the nearest word correlated, and option C comes to that. And the 12th question: how many times maximum may adjournment be granted to a party during hearing of the suit as per CPC? So there is no such number of adjournment limit is given. So that is the answer. So here we are done with the first set of the question, the 12 questions of 18th AIB exam. So we will meet in the next set. Stay tuned.